Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast brought to you by the Draft Professors. Today, we are joined by Draft Professors Chris Connor, Dalton Gentry. We're going to be doing some defensive tackle big boards. Guys, we have been podcasting together, I think, for the better part of 12 straight weeks. We did, I think, 10 groups of 8. We did an edge big board last Monday. I am very appreciative for the efforts that both of you put in to prep for the podcast, as well as the time that you spent on the podcast. So, Dalton, Chris, thank you very much.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah. So, Chris, what was your impression of the Ohio State-Indiana game that was on Saturday?
It was. If you were a scout, you went there looking for. I'm saying majority of scouts, it was probably that was what you're looking for. Defensive game. You wanted to see how guys like Caden McDonald, Caden Curry. I would even argue Pons from Indiana, who really showed out. That's who you went for. If you were desperate for a quarterback, you wanted to see, okay, how did Fernando Mendoza do when he's taking on a legit, almost NFL-light NFL defense? So, look, it was everything it was advertised. It was hard hitting. It was close. Points were tough to get by. Defensive players popped. What can I say? It was old school. Despite it being a lot of pass happy, it was still an old school defensive feel for the Big Ten.
Yep. So, Dalton, if the New York Giants draft one player that was playing in the Ohio State-Indiana game, who do you hope it would be?
Man, Carnell Tate or Caleb Downs for sure, one of them two. Our front seven is great, so I don't think we need anybody there. Don't need a quarterback or running back. So, yeah, Tate. And I think Tate would make a great duo with Neighbors. But it might be too early. I mean, right now we got the number 1 pick. I don't want to take a receiver number 1 or a safety. So, your guess is as good as mine right now.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's awesome to have you guys on the channel. And I'm not big on like top 10 lists, with one exception, and that's this time of year, because this is really the first look at, okay, we've evaluated 2025 game film. Here's how a preliminary board stacks up based upon the analysis that has been done. Some of these guys are still playing. The players that are in the college football playoffs are still playing. Some of them also still have a bowl game. Now, I'm trying to remember. So I believe Dalton's list is the one on the left. Chris's list is the one on the right. The names on the list are different. I'm going to read them. So for the users on Spotify, you know what the boards are. My ask of Dalton and Chris was to rank the players where they see they could be a potential starter, likely with a round 1 through 5 grade. So for Dalton, Peter Woods, Caleb Banks, Amari Washington, all with first-round grades. Kristen Miller, Dante Corleone, Caden McDonald, CJ Fight with second-round grades. Dominique Orange, Lee Hunter, I believe with third-round grades. And then Daryl Jackson, Bear Alexander, Albert Regis, Cole Brevard, David Oki, with round 4 or 5 or early day 3 grades, and then DeMonte Capehart with a late day 3 grade. For Chris, it's Peter Woods with a round 1 grade, Caden McDonald with a round 1-2 grade, Kristen Miller, Dominique Orange with round 2 grades, Chris McClellan, Lee Hunter, Daryl Jackson Jr., I believe those are round 2-3 grades, and then Dante Corleone and Xavier Harris with round 3 grades, Tim Keenan, Zane Durant, Terry Webb, CJ Fight, Albert Regis, and Brandon Cleveland with early day 3 grades. So first of all, did I get your boards right? Like I believe, like where you had them graded. Did I say that correctly, Chris?
Yeah, you got mine correct.
Okay. Dalton, did I do yours accurately as well?
Oh yeah, got it.
Okay, so Chris, I noticed that Caleb Banks is not on your board. How many games will he need to play for you to add him to your board for the year?
I took him off the board just because of the injury history. I mean, and look, for me, it's going to be. I want to see the medicals. Like, I always worry when big guys get foot and ankle injuries because you wonder, is this going to be a problem? Is this going to be one of those things where we're looking at, yeah, this will be a recurring theme going forward? Look, last year he was great. Just this year, I think he played, 2 or 3 games, and it was supposed to be like, oh, it's a minor injury. Then it became like, yeah, it's an injury, but still like, hey, it's going to take time. And then it was like, okay, yeah, this is a kind of a serious injury. So that's why I took him off my board. Until teams get medicals, I'd say a lot of teams are going to look and go, why did you miss most of the season? Well, it was like, it was a foot injury. Well, what kind? I mean, they were very quiet about it in Florida.
Okay. And so I guess, Dalton, what did you see from Dante Corleone that you have a day 2 grade on him?
It's just his strength, his play strength is. I think it's the best in the class probably for a D tackle. And he's so talented. I mean, he doesn't play that much. Yeah, I know he's not super stamina, great stamina right now, but last year he had 26 tackles, 5 tackles for a loss. First team All Big 12. I think he could have left last year and been drafted, day 2. He decided to come back, and I think he had a good year overall. I mean, he didn't stick out a lot, but D tackles, the numbers usually don't in the stat sheet. But I think his ability he's going to be able to command double teams, and he's going to be able to, that free up the linebackers to make up more plays against the run. I think if you want 3-down production, though, you might be disappointed in him a little bit because of his pass rushing on 3rd downs. Pad level is high sometimes, and his pass rush repertoire is pretty much just a bull rush. I know I've seen him go his draft stock from the 2nd round to the 4th round, I think, depending on how much you weigh his run stopping ability. But I think his run stopping ability is elite. So I think his high floor is really what puts him in the round 2.
How do you compare him to Tavondre Sweat, who I believe went round 2 to the Titans?
Tavondre Sweat, he was a little bit bigger, I believe, right? Is he like?
Yeah. Sweat was definitely bigger than.
Yeah, I think he's like 366, so he got a little more weight on him. But in terms of strength, I think Corleone's right up there with him. Yeah, in terms of double team and limited pass rush upside, I think that's a good comparison, honestly.
Okay, and then Chris, I noticed that you have Chris McClellan of Missouri with a day 2 grade. What did you like about Chris McClellan that you have him so high?
I liked McClellan was active a lot. I thought he's a guy who does the trench work, which I think teams are going to like. You have Zion Young, and you have, of course, Damon Wilson Jr. And look, they're great on the edges. McClellan's a guy though who was key in clogging up the middle, making sure that teams didn't just run like crazy. He has a good bull pass rush. It's still developing the pass rush moves. He needs work on it. But for a guy who he's sort of a modern day, what I think teams like in defensive tackles. He's perfect height. He's not too he's not too big. He's not over 330 pounds. He's just right. And I think that's what teams will love about him is that he's that guy who can do the grunt work, can do the what you need, just clog up the middle, and that way, as you said, teams can surround the quarterback and get at him.
Okay, and then I'm looking to see. So Dalton, you have a day 2 grade on CJ Fight. So what did you see from Fight that you graded him on day 2?
I've just seen him. It's been 3 years of productivity. It's been since 2023. Campaign. He's been a contributor for this defense, and last year he really elevated his game. He was kind of a star last year. 30 tackles, 2 sacks, 8 for a loss, and then this year he's continued it. When you watch Arizona State's defense, you just can't help but notice him. Even if he's not making the tackle, he's in the backfield, disrupting plays. Really good against the run, man. I mean, he wins with technique, he wins with leverage, he wins with determination instead of athleticism. But I like that for D tackles. Some positions I'm like, I want a freak, but at D tackles I want effort. And I think he's also a guy that can anchor against double teams as well, control the A gap really well. That's going to translate immediately to the next level, I think. So you can get a 2-down player as soon as you draft him. But I think he has a lot of upside in pass rush. Like, he had really athletic traits. He can be a Pro Bowler if he can combine it with his run stopping. So I like his upside a lot. That's really what it is for me.
Okay, and Chris, you've got a day 2 grade on Lee Hunter. So some people are saying Lee Hunter is rising up draft boards. It sounds like they're rising up to where you have him. So what do you like about Lee Hunter that you have a day 2 grade on?
For a guy his size, man, he moves quick. And we saw that in this BYU game where he was in the backfield a lot. He was penetrating. He's chasing down Bear Brockmeyer. He gets lost in a shuffle. It's Jacob Rodriguez is college football's darling. You have Romelio Height and David Bailey. They're the 1-2 knockout punch. But you get to Lee Hunter, and he's the guy who does dirty work, clogs up the middle, but I'd say he has a little more finesse than a guy his size should have. And the production is there. So when you have those traits, when you see him dominate, when you see that Texas Tech defensive line, front seven, they get after people. And we've seen it constantly where they make quarterbacks nervous. They do not they don't let the running game, be a factor. Like in the BYU game, they held that BYU's offense to 7 points. So teams, I think, are going to look at Lee Hunter and go, he's tall. He knows how to use his height well. He's big, but he's not too big. And that Texas Tech defense just, because of him, they were allowed to shut people down and not even let him get to 14 points a lot of the time.
Okay, so any other players on either, I'm looking, so it looks like all the day 2 players on your boards are on both boards with the exception of Xavier Harris. I'm looking, is Xavier Harris on Dalton's board? So Dalton, I don't see Xavier Harris of Ole Miss on your board.
I think he's I don't have him on the board. No, I don't. I don't like his off-field issues. I wouldn't draft him.
Yep. Okay. So other than Xavier Harris, all the day 2 players on both boards are identical. Not that they're graded the same, but they're on both boards. But then I was looking, and your day 3 lists have 0 overlap. Oh, wait, no. Albert Regis is the only player that both of you have on your board with a day 3. So, for example, Cole Brevard is on one board. He's not on the other. Tim Keenan's on one board, but he's not on the other. So, Dalton, do you want to take a minute and just talk through your day 3 grades at defensive tackle?
Oh, yeah. I'll start with Cole Brevard. He's just your classic run stuffer, He needs to develop his pass rushing skills to become a more versatile and valuable player. That's why I got him down here, around 4 or 5. Definitely not a top-tier prospect, but his size and strength, I think, is what makes him just draftable. He's being 340-plus pounds. He's going to go up there. He's going to eat up blocks, and he's going to clog running lanes. And that's what you want late in the draft, You're not going to get any pass rushing out of this guy, but that. So that's why I think he's a late rounder, but I think he's a true 2-down player, so like an efficient one too, not just a guy that's out there for 2 downs. He can make some plays on the run. Then, oh yeah, he can go next, and then I'll go to
Okay, yeah. So, Chris, why
else
don't you
next. Yeah,
take one of your day 3 guys and highlight one of your day 3 guys?
I go Tim Keenan the third. I mean, look, he's a just a run stuffing plugger, and I get it. It's not sexy. You're gonna look and go, well, aren't there those guys? But we see in the NFL, like they last. Teams need guys who can run stuff, and when Tim Keenan the third was on there, I saw a lot of good sideline to sideline penetration. I saw a guy who's physically able to handle bigger guards, and I think the mentality of he has no problem doing the dirty work, no problem just clogging out, taking 2 guys. Teams are gonna love that because again, you just prevent the run. You prevent teams from running up the middle or running power right, power left. Will he be a great defensive tackle? Probably not, but for a guy that you're asking to just come in, be first or second down defensive tackle, I think he fits perfectly because of the Alabama pedigree. He's a very smart player in terms of recognizing fronts, if it's going to be poles, if it's going to be traps. To me, he is a guy I think teams are going to value in terms of just what he brings to the table.
Okay, Dalton, somebody else you have a day 3 grade on that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think I don't think we did this guy on our previews, David Oki. If we didn't, I get it because he was, I believe, Christian transfer. He only played 2 games this year at Arkansas, so he has 2 games of film against bigger opponents. But his film against the lower levels was like dominant. 60 tackles as a D tackle, and 11 tackles for a loss as a junior. He's transferred up. Yeah, like I said, he's got injury questions, obviously, and he has competition questions. But I think his film is it really shows you that he understands leverage, he understands gap integrity, at like a really advanced level. And I think his combo of run defense and his special teams value is going to earn him a roster spot like immediately. You don't have to worry about that. And I think his snap counts will be limited for sure initially because you're going to have to get back from injury and just really get used to playing these NFL tackles. But I think the 4th round, 5th round feels right for him because he was dominant against the run, even though he didn't play high-level guys.
Okay. Chris, who's one of your day 3 guys you want to give a shout-out to?
Terry Webb. I get it. We've talked about him in the past. It was like, well, he's not great against the run, but he's a good pass rusher. And again, you find homes for guys who can get to the quarterback. We watched him this year, and this is a guy who came in and look, 8.5 sacks is nothing to sneeze at. If you can get to the quarterback, we saw him do that in several games for SMU, whether it was against Clemson, whether it was TCU. This guy did it. Again, if you're looking for the full-time guy who is going to stop the run, that's not him. But if you're looking for a guy who can get to the backfield, who's pretty quick, who understands, sometimes getting leverage and getting around bigger tackles, which we saw you did against Wake Forest, I think teams are going to fall in love with Terry Webb and go, you know what, we can maybe put some more weight on him, maybe we just work on it, but we can put him in right away against the pass, and he'll make timely sacks.
Okay. And again, I love, Chris, how you kind of positioned it. When you're drafting on day 3, a lot of times you're looking for a role. It may not be a starter. So I love the designated pass rusher, but the pass rushing defensive tackle, Terry Webb. So, Dalton, do you have another day 3 guy that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I think Barry Alexander has really played good this year. I mean, he has 6 tackles for loss, 45 combined tackles. And for D tackle, that's a lot. Half a sack. I think he's been under the radar. This Oregon defense has been pretty dominant. And, they have a lot of good prospects. Guys ranked above him. Thieneman and Ugalele. But he's held his own this year, man. And 6 tackles for loss in the Big Ten. I think it's pretty impressive. He can get after the quarterback. His stamina's not the best. That's his biggest downfall right now. He gets tired really easy, and his pad level gets high. So he doesn't play a lot in a row. Like he played 3 snaps here, 6 there, but he won't be on the field for 10 plus snaps. That's the thing about to get better at the next level. But his upside is there. You can really see it. I mean, you've been able to see it since his freshman year at Georgia, and he put together a good year there, put together a good year at USC, and then last year wasn't great, but 3 out of 4 years were pretty solid. No, I think he went from being a little overrated to a little underrated in this draft process.
Okay. And I think Chris and I were talking about him backstage. Barry Alexander does have another year of eligibility, so there is a chance he goes back to school. And if he's getting day 3 grades, he's probably going back to school.
Yeah, he's a redshirt junior. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the next question would be, how does this defensive tackle class stack up, let's say, relative to last year? So last year, in case anybody's memory is a little fuzzy, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon all went top 20 as defensive tackles. The guy from Ohio State, is it Williams? Is that his name?
Tyleik, yeah.
Yeah, Tyleik Williams. He either went late round 1 or early round 2. TJ Sanders went early round 2.
Did you say Walter Nolan?
Yeah. Oh, and then Walter Nolan went. So Walter Nolan went round 1, right?
Yeah, Walter Nolan was 16th overall. You had Kenneth Grant 13th. Mason Graham was 5th, and he had Tyleik Williams. You had, but technically, Derek Harmon. Though Harmon sometimes plays an edge. I mean, you had a lot. And I think last year's draft was more. They can get to the passer. They're more complete defensive tackles. Or in Williams' case, it was just, the traits were there in terms of, hey, national champion, big guy, we can take him. That's why I look at Tyreek Williams to me is like Christian, is sort of like Cade McDonald, where he's probably a second-round pick, but some team might fall in love and take him with a very low first-round pick. This defensive tackle class, it's good. It's just not great. You don't see anybody who's like, man, this guy's going to be, a day 1 starter, right off the bat, impact player. It's sort of, outside of Peter Woods, I look at this class like, it's good. Not great, but good.
Yeah, and I guess the point I was making with the numbers, so already I think as Chris and I and Dalton were rattling off the names, I think we came up with 8 names that went in the top 50. And then, so we had 8 in the top 50, and then you look at the boards that we just discussed. Right now we may have 8 in the top 100. Right. So I think the grades that you guys had on the defensive tackles were really similar to the other groups that covered the defensive linemen. I think the biggest surprise was when I saw CJ Fight on Dalton's board. That was, out of all of the grades, that was the one that seemed like it was an outlier. And it's okay. That's okay. But meaning that it seems like everybody's kind of grading the players with like relatively the same value. But if you want one, I think they're going to go higher than everybody has them graded. Because if you need one, and if you need a defensive tackle, are you going to be able to wait until day 2? Or excuse me, are you going to be able to wait till day 3 to get like a Tim Keenan? Are you willing to wait to get a role player, or do you want a player that has upside to be a starter? But Dalton, what do you think of the depth of this defensive tackle class, or do you want to call a shot as to how many you think go in the top 100?
That's the reason I had 7 going in the first 2 rounds, I think. Not because I think this class is great, but like you said, teams reach for positions all the time. D tackle is going to be it this year because the depth's not as good as last year. I think last year it was strong across multiple rounds. You had potential starters available beyond the first round. And guys can play 3 downs instead of just 2. This year, you got a lot of 2-down players, especially when you get past the top 2 or 3 guys this year. It's pass rush only or run stopping only this year. And last year, I think they were just way more versatile. This year's class isn't terrible, but last year's was definitely better, right? You ain't gonna have a guy go. I don't think Peter Woods is gonna be top 5 anymore. He was projected earlier in the year, but I don't think anybody's got him going that high anymore. So you don't got a Mason Graham this year, and I don't think definitely no Kenneth Grant's, no guy or no Walter Nolan's guys going middle first round. I think you only got one guy going top 25 for sure. I'd be surprised if you have 2.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. So, Chris, how does Peter Woods compare to Mason Graham or Jalen Carter for you?
He's not Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was a force who you looked at and went, okay, he's destroying teams, and you saw Georgia just shutting people down. He's not that. I think he's better than Mason Graham. It comes down to the problem that we've asked with Clemson. Like, why are they so bad? Why is a Clemson team that it was we had Clemson this year as, hey, they're going to be in the NCAA college football playoffs. They're going to go back, and again we looked at Clemson and it was like, what's going on? Why are you losing? Giving up 34 points to Syracuse, giving up 46 to Duke. Yeah. And granted, they righted the ship later on, but it was just, you looked at this defense and you kept wondering, where are the standouts? Why are you not standing out? Why are you not dominating? I think we hold that against Peter Woods. Do I think he'll go top 10, top 15? Yes. But I mean, if you're a scout, if you're a GM, you want to ask him, like, what the hell happened? Why is it that last year when you guys were 11-3, you were dominating teams, you basically went into a crapper and lost 5 out of your first 8 games, and you were we were at one point going, oh crap, they might not even make a bowl game. They might even not have a winning season. So that has to go into it. When a team does something like this, when they're so talented, that's going to be the question with Peter Woods. Like, okay, why didn't you dominate? Why couldn't you just shut teams down that weren't as good as you?
Okay. So trying to get a feel for kind of how Peter Woods stacks up against defensive tackles that were drafted from the last couple of years. So, Dalton, do you agree that Peter Woods is lower than Jalen Carter or Mason Graham would have been?
I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of Graham last year, personally. I thought he was overdrafted quite a bit. Same with Kenneth Grant. Both the Michigan guys last year, I thought it was a product of Michigan's defense being amazing, not them guys being next-level prospects. But, I like Walter Nolan more than both of them last year just because his pass rush side. But,
that's actually going to be my next question. So how do you stack Peter Woods up against Walter Nolan or Derek Harmon as prospects?
I mean, I loved him before the year, but I mean, he only has 3.5 tackles for loss this year. Bear Alexander has 6. So I'm just saying, his production isn't there like it should be. The guy that's good for Clemson this year that's supposed to is Avion Terrell. I think he's probably the only one. So, I mean, you're taking Woods because he's the best available this year. He's the number one because nobody else is taking it from him. I don't think he's really taking it himself. He's solid, but I think if he's top 10, which he probably will end up being, I don't know if it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, so this is actually the point that I'm driving at, right? So Jalen Carter and Mason Graham were drafted at about the same spot of the draft. I think Carter actually went later than Graham, but Carter is actually the better of the 3. If we had to compare Graham, Carter, Peter Woods, Carter is clearly the best prospect of those 3. And he actually, I think he went 9th to Philly. If memory serves
right.
Right?
I think it was, I was thinking 7, but it might be 9.
Okay. I mean, so it was, and Mason Graham won 5.
It was after Graham for sure.
Right. And then Derek Harmon went to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh was drafting in the 20s. Peter Woods would be used similar to Derek Harmon, right? So Derek Harmon, Chris, you just mentioned a second ago, he could play all along the line, and that's somehow how Clemson uses Peter Woods as well. Do you think that's how Peter Woods gets used at the NFL level?
Possibly. I see. I don't know if he has the speed for an edge. Maybe he can. Again, you could probably use him as a D tackle in a 3-4 or a 4-3. And again, it's last year's class was an outlier that you had one quarterback drafted, or two actually, in the entire first round, and one all the way down to 26. So you had a lot of defensive tackles because it was a heavy defensive draft. You saw Michigan the year before win the national championship with these guys. They beat Ohio State. They shut them down. That's why Mason Graham and especially Kenneth Grant got a lot of love. Jalen Carter was a whole different story. Jalen Carter would have been the number one pick if he wasn't a knucklehead. I mean, that's what we had to address. Like, this is a guy who people are saying, well, yeah, he'd be number one pick overall if he didn't get into that whole racing, the car racing fiasco, and there are rumors about him being kind of an a-hole, because that's why Detroit passed on. Like, all right, we don't have a locker room for him. Eagles do. With Woods, it's sort of like, well, he's good. We know he's solid. It's just sort of like he's not a star. I don't know. And now I can't put my finger on it. Just something about him is just, it bothers me that this guy was not a game record in games, especially in ACC, which was not strong. We didn't have an ACC. The ACC champion is not even representing the college football playoffs. I mean, too many of these teams looked at the ACC and went, God, they're really not that good. So the fact that he only has 2 sacks, he only has 3.5 tackles for loss, that there were too many games where we didn't notice him. That worries me.
Okay. So, and again, this was me just trying to maybe set the stage for, you have defensive tackles in this class who are going to be able to be NFL starters. And the most important thing to remember, you're not trying to draft all pros. You're trying to draft starters. So there's a good chance that, if there's a Pro Bowler in the group, it actually might be further down the list, but they need some development, right? Whether that's the Kristen Miller, and Kristen Miller may end up going back to school, or the Caden McDonald, who seems to be like a fast riser, but he had 2 Ohio State defensive tackles that went to the NFL ahead of him last year. So we really have 1 year of starts to evaluate Caden McDonald. So just a reminder to everybody, when you're drafting starters, not all pros. Just remember that.
With a caveat, if you're drafting top 10, this guy should be like, all right, we are drafting a Pro Bowler. We are drafting a guy that is going to come in right away, and we have him as he will be a top 15 player, top 10 player of the NFL. Otherwise, okay, then just trade down and you can get a player of a similar value.
Right.
Yeah,
and go ahead, Dalton.
It's just a good point he made. Yeah, it's good. That's all. I like that.
Yep, draft starters. If you're a GM and you draft starters, you're not going to get fired. It's when you swing and a miss, and the player that you draft can't even start for your team, right? If you avoid those misses and you focus on drafting starters, you'll do all right. That's also one of the reasons that defensive tackles get drafted higher. I think it's an evaluation that translates, meaning that the number of wide receivers that get drafted, even just on day 1 and 2, versus the number of those day 1 and 2 wide receivers that become starters, it's that the miss percentage is about 50%. And that's just with day 2 wide receivers, right? So there are some GMs that just play, let's say they play it as you draft defensive linemen, you draft offensive linemen in rounds 1 and 2 because those players bust less. You're more likely to hit on your picks. Chris, any other thoughts on the defensive tackle class or the edge class that we have spent the last 12 weeks covering?
I think the defensive tackle class, they fit what they are. I mean, all these guys are, for the most part, except for the only people on my board were Zane Durant and Terry Webb, who are on a smaller side. Most of these guys, they're what the NFL is looking for. 6'2" to 6'4", 300 plus pounds, clogs the middle, does his job, can penetrate, bull rush. We can work with that. It's a steak and egg mentality, I like to call it. It's not going to be fancy. They're not going to be, pop every time, but they're going to be solid. They're going to do their job. They will, do the dirty work, and that's what you like. The edge class is sort of a blend of either pure speed pass rusher with David Bailey's, Cassius Howells, where you pin the ears back of a dog, you send it out, and you let it attack, a la Will Anderson, or you get guys like Ruben Bain, Keldrick Falk, who are sort of along the lines of like a Myles Garrett type, big, powerful, will use everything. We can push guys back, but also have some speed. I think we'll see more edge guys get drafted in the first 2 rounds. We'll see defensive tackles just because teams can, go through them like butter. Every team will look and go, well, we can rotate guys in. We have a guy who can set the edge. Now we need a guy who can just go after the pass rusher. Whether it's Donovan Ezeraku, whether it is Jalen Williams from the Falcons. That's what you're looking for. So to me, I think you will see like 5 or 6 edges get drafted in the first round, whereas with defense tackles, we'll start seeing more of them get drafted in the first probably 3 rounds. Round 2 and 3, we'll start seeing a lot more of them get drafted.
And Dalton, for you, as you look at the defensive tackle class and the edge class, any final thoughts as we kind of close out this phase of the podcasting where we were doing the deep dive on the position groups?
I think, we did 15 on the, 15 last week on the edge board. I think all 15 of them for me had around 3 or better grades. So it's a really deep class at DN. I think I have like 38 draftable guys so far. That's a pretty big list. That's what you want. You can get guys late and they can be designated pass rushers, or you can get guys early and try to, use them for 3 downs. So I like the versatility and the depth of the pass rushing class. D tackle, not as deep and not as much upside, I don't think, this year, but there's definitely some starters there and some high impact guys. So you're just going to have to find them and really develop them, I think, this year.
Okay. Well, why don't we pause for podcaster identification? Chris, would you like to let everybody know about the Last Call and all the other?
Sure. You can check me out at lastcallpodcast.com. Also on YouTube, Last Call CC. I am on Twitter. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Rumble. This week, if you just tuned in today, we had, of course, once again from MMA Oddsbreaker and Eurosport UFC, Marcel Dorff breaking down the Wild UFC 323, the final pay-per-view in UFC until now we go full free on Paramount Plus. And then this week, weather permitting and internet, we'll be having Will Thomas join us and he'll talk about the Penn State coaching search, how it finally came to fruition, his thoughts on Notre Dame pulling out, and then as I said, weather permitting, and hopefully the internet code doesn't die out here in the Northeast. I'll be having the Home Squad Sports guys come on to talk some college football playoffs, recruiting class questions about who won, who lost, and once again, always love being on the Draft Professor podcasts.
Well, we love having you. Thank you so much. Like I said, I am so grateful for the effort that you and Dalton put in for the last 12 weeks. So we couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much. Okay, I'm not sure what swimming pools mean here in the comment.
Me either.
Dalton, do you want to let everybody know about Home Squad Sports, what you'll be doing on Chris's podcast later, and all the other great things that you do?
Yeah, we do a live show every Monday and Wednesday. Got a lot of big stuff coming out. An interview this week, Wednesday, with Brett Kolajay. He's part of the USC class, number 1 in the nation. So that'll be cool. He's a center, one of the top ranked in the country. So that'd be cool. And then, it'll be on Chris' show, I think, tomorrow night. So, I'm looking forward to that.
Tomorrow night will be taping, so hopefully I'll have some good stuff here.
Hopefully. We'll see what happens. You got bad weather up there?
Oh, yes. The internet is on and off sometimes. It's now getting around like the teens and snow, so hopefully my house is pretty decent. We don't lose power. I'm looking on the glass half full right now. So we have power. It's all I can ask for.
Well, see, all of our snow melted.
Yeah.
So we had snow for like 8 days. It snowed like the day after we got back. I think it snowed like Monday last week, and it finally melted yesterday. So I want to give my appreciation to Chris and Dalton. This is the time of year where the best people are on Draft Professor giving their player evaluation. So you're going to see the lineup change starting in January. You're going to see different people coming on the podcast. The best people are on Draft Professor October through December. That's where we're breaking down the draft class. We're comparing notes. There were 3 different podcasts on defensive tackles. So you got to see Chris and Dalton's board. There's a Sunday podcast that was doing the same players. They're doing their boards, the edge board on Sunday, and then the defensive tackle board the week after. And then Newt and Owen on Wednesday do their last set of scouting reports on Wednesday, and then their boards are coming the 2 weeks that follow. So you're going to hear more about the defensive tackle class and get to see a few more people's boards. But ultimately what we're trying to do is show you different people's opinions of how the draft class looks. And then we'll start talking about maybe the players that are, for example, CJ Fight. Because if 2 people had different evaluations or different grades, do more people have different evaluations of that player? And I think we're going to see the same thing with Lee Hunter. I think we're going to see the same thing with Damani Capehart. It's actually, Dalton, you're not the only one that likes Capehart. Owen won't quit DeMonte Capehart. He's basically saying there's something about the Clemson scheme that's probably holding him back. But Owen really likes him too. So, we'll be able to start figuring that out as we see more people's boards. So just shout out to Chris, shout out to Dalton. Give them both a follow, please, and thank you. You can also follow Draft Professor here at NFL Draft Fanatic. We will be live at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern every weeknight. And then we will be live Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings from now until every day leading up to the draft. So for Chris, Dalton, myself, and the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your Monday night, and we'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow, everybody.